going to talk tonight about a woman named Arlene Blum. Now, Arlene Blum is nothing like me, and you're going to figure that out pretty quickly. She grew up on the south side of Chicago. She was raised by her single mother and her grandparents. They were Orthodox Jews, and they struggled with poverty, and they led a very limited life. They pretty much boxed her in. Her teacher said, "She's a bright girl. She needs a better school. Can she take a bus to go to a better magnet school across town?" They said, "No." Her mother was bright. Look where it got her. She went out into the world. It ended in trouble. No. Arlene started playing with her neighbor's piano. She said, "Grandpa, I want to take piano lessons." He said, "No. Your father was a musician. Look where it got your mother." She went to Hebrew school. Come on. It's the last 5%, guys. Let's go. She went to Hebrew school. The rabbi would only let the boys pray. He'd only talk to the boys about theological questions. So she went home and said to her grandfather, "Can you teach me the prayers? Can you teach me how to think like the boys do with the rabbi? Grandpa, I think I could actually do better than that." Her grandpa said yes. She went to Hebrew school. The rabbi said no, and he never called on her. But there was one thing that they all agreed upon. She should marry a nice Jewish boy from the neighborhood. And she said no. When she graduated from high school, she got as far away from that part of the city, her upbringing, as she could. She went to Reed College in Portland, Oregon. Any Reed College? One back there? All right. She went to Reed College, and she was so excited to be far away from her upbringing. The first week of school, a very handsome lab partner said, "Hey, you want to climb a mountain this weekend?" And she thought, "I've never even seen a mountain. I'm from the Midwest. I've never seen a mountain, let alone climbed one." So she said, "Sure, I'd love to do that." Well, the climbing team was not that excited. They were pretty upset with John for asking a woman, a girl, to go on their climbing expedition. Girls were supposed to stay at the base of the mountain and cook. Plus, she wasn't going to be as strong, so they'd have to carry her pack, and she was going to slow everybody down. Well, she got wind of this, and she was determined not to let this happen. So she climbed and climbed. She did everything she could to stay up with these men, but she got to the top, not quite to the top, about 100 feet from the top, and realized she was completely out of breath. She couldn't breathe anymore. She thought, well, I'll just step back and look at the summit. She stepped back into a pile of gravel, slid 100 feet down the mountain, tore her clothing, scratched her butt to shreds, she said in the autobiography. And she ended up having to carry around, like those potty training toilet seats, those cushioned toilet seats. She had to carry that around campus for the next 6 weeks because she couldn't even sit down. Well, after she went to Reed College, she went on to MIT and then got a PhD from Berkeley. Now, some of you might remember this. When I was younger, Mark, you'll certainly remember this, there was conversation that children were all safe now because a flame-retardant chemical was put on our pajamas. And I was probably 8 or 9 or 10, I don't know, but I still thought, if a fire got in my house, got into my bedroom, encroached my sleeping space, is a fire-retardant chemical actually going to help me? I don't think so. But the pajama industry had these on all of our pajamas so that we could feel safe. Well, her PhD research discovered that this fire-retardant chemical actually was cancer-producing. And so she took on the industry and said, we need to stop this. So, and she spent the rest of her life working on chemical research and the environment and, the dangers. So even though we don't know her name, we can thank her that she took on the industry, and we no longer have this chemical in our pajamas. Well, after that terrible climb where she shredded her butt, she has gone on to climb 300 mountains, including Mount Everest and Denali and all kinds of mountains that if you're a mountain climber you'd know about, but as I said, she's nothing like me, and I have no idea what mountains are big mountains or not. But I would never do that, what she's doing there. So recently she was asked in an interview, what's the greatest challenge in climbing a mountain? Is it the ice that just cloaks everything and you're trying to get traction on the mountain? Is it knowing how to bring enough food and how to ration for weeks at a time on a mountain? Is it the sub-zero cold that you have to get up and climb? Or is it the avalanche or the blizzard that blinds you? She said, no. It's the desire to finish. What? You've just spent 6 weeks on this mountain. You're looking at this gorgeous landscape. You've put time and energy, taken time away from work. You've been there. You get 100 yards from the top, and you're not sure if you want to finish? She said, yeah, you get up there and you think, this might be good enough. The view's great. We've had a great experience. Nobody's died yet. Let's just call it quits. She said that's the hardest part, the temptation to quit. Well, if you think about this, it's actually not that surprising because Americans have a hard time finishing things. I don't know, well, probably you look like you've all eaten something today. Statistics tell us that 17% of the food that we receive on a plate during the day, we leave on the plate. I actually thought that was kind of low, 17%. At University of Michigan, my home state, some of the students were so upset with all the fruit and vegetables that were left on the other students' plates that they created an app, leftoverswap.com. And you could, say, I've got, plate of beans, looking to trade for pepperoni sliced pizza. I don't know. But this thing actually exists. 43% of the homes the new homes in America are sold unfinished. Now, this next slide, maybe it doesn't look like this in your house, but my kids have preciously few chores. I mean, they do nothing for the life that they get. And the one thing that they have to do, somebody has to do the dishes every night, and I have a calendar with each of their initials, so they have to figure it out. This is what finished dishes look like in my house. I come down most nights, and that's their finished work. I don't know, who's their mother? Education. Americans are not doing a real good job at finishing our education. 1 million high school students drop out a year. Do you know that just over 50% of American college students finish in less than 6 years? 400,000 college students drop out of college each year and never return to college, which is creating probably one of the most severe debt crises in our history, particularly for young people. I was at a lecture last week at Calvin, and there was a CEO from Detroit that came to speak to us, and he said that he has implemented a new policy in his office. No one is allowed to email or leave voicemail. The reason is that we look at the screen, we look at the message, and we don't scroll down to the end. We pick up a voicemail, think, I get the point, and then we hang up. And so many people were missing meetings and important information because they weren't finishing the email. They weren't finishing the voicemail. I'm wondering what you've left unfinished. Are there maybe that kitchen painting project? I know I can say that. How about your lawn? Does anybody have leaves here? Or is that just something that we have up north that have all fallen? Christmas cards. I always have this stack that I want to write something meaningful. Or, all my friends that live overseas, I think, I got to go get special postage. They're still in a stack. I don't know, has anybody started a marathon training? Diets? Music lessons? I asked around before I came what youth ministers might uniquely leave unfinished. And I was told that the number one answer was Bible study or their message. They do a great job on starting. They have a couple points to do in the middle, but they never really think about what's at the end. Maybe it's an article you were asked to write. Maybe it's a relationship that you have, or a commitment, or a job. I was hired several years ago to what I thought was the perfect job. It was in kind of an enclosed suburb. There was a middle school, high school, one middle school, one high school. My church right nearby had a sweet gym. Kids could come by all the time. I was also told that this church has great traditions. I was also told that I was the fourth youth pastor that they had in 6 years, but I don't know, somehow I didn't think that meant anything for me. And then I was told that they had these tremendous mission trips. So as I was starting to plan for the mission trip, some of the college students came in and said, actually that's not your job. The youth pastor finds drivers and cooks, and then you're pretty much free after dinner because we take care of everything else. Well, that might work, but it didn't. So that year on the mission trip, I went just to see what was going on. And after dinner, I was told, you're done. You don't have to be here anymore. But I did. I stuck around. And some of these traditions were actually a cover for hazing. And I started saying, you can't do this. This is a problem here. What I learned shortly after that is that the other 3 youth pastors had quit the week after the mission trip. I went home and talked to the pastor, and I said, I need to leave. And he said, please don't do that. You are called to a greater purpose. You are not called to these kids. You are not called to this youth group in particular. You are called to the Church of Jesus Christ, and you need to continue to do his work here. You're not finished. I called my mentor and told her everything, sure that she would say, you got to get out of there. And she said, you can't leave. You're not done here yet. That's not what I wanted to hear. I stayed for 5 years. I worked really hard at building relationships, starting healthy traditions, trying to create traditions that were based in a Christ-like community, traditions that didn't hurt people. I tried to build trust. It was a long haul. I wanted to leave most of that time. But as time went on, relationships were built, friendships were built, and a great thing happened. I'm going to need to skip the slide. I think I'm going a little over. When Blum was asked, is there a difference between people that finish and people that don't finish the job or finish the climb? She said yes. The first difference is people that finish the climb know they have a purpose. They can see that purpose out there, and they envision how to get there. That purpose drives all the hardships, all the temptations to quit, everything that is along the way that's hard, it's framed by that purpose. The second thing she said is that people that finish surround themselves with companions who they can, they surround these people, they choose these people as if their life depended on it. And for her, their life actually did depend on it. But for us, we surround ourselves with people that support us, care for us, guide us, challenge us, and make us not quit. That was my husband, by the way, the senior pastor. Forgot to mention that piece. I wasn't going to leave him. I just wanted to leave the church. But The third thing she said is that people that finish understand that the last 5% is the most important, and it's the absolute hardest. It's not time to coast. It's not time to slide in over the finish line. It's the hardest part, and it demands 100%. Friends, we are people of purpose. We have the purpose of bringing God's love and reconciling this world to God. We are God's people. We're surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. And we are people of God's promise. The God that promised to be with us at the base of that mountain promises to be with us at the summit. And that is worth our 100%. Amen.